welcome to EntrepreNINES. I'm John Wist.
And I'm Bonni Mace. We're two Enneagram 9s who took the big leap into the world of entrepreneurship. At a similar time in this podcast is a space where we're inviting you to laugh and learn with us as we work to build businesses with soul. Episode 11.
Yeah, and I feel like we're going to hit on the soul this week a lot.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of pulling an audible a little bit in our schedule of what we were going to record, to just kind of be a little vulnerable and real about.
We like doing that.
Yeah. Maybe more so than we sometimes. This time, I think we might be more so than we sometimes allow ourselves to be, but only because it's just, this is like an off the cuff thing.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna do a little soul check.
Soul check
today, because culture's crazy.
Yes.
And there's just a lot happening in our, at least American realm, we'll call it, because I feel like if you live somewhere else in the world, you're definitely not probably facing the same things as here. It's a different context, different culture, different level. And
timing is different.
Timing is different. And so, yeah, culturally, there's just been a lot happening. And I wanted to ask if we could make some space to see how do we respond to this as business owners, and because we're businesses with souls, which means that our souls respond to what's happening in our cultural context, and so we can't ignore the fact that we're humans and that we absorb things and think things and believe things and have opinions and have things that maybe positively or negatively impact us as business owners because we are human and have souls.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to make it happy at the end, maybe.
That's what we try.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to try to, make it upbeat. And
just hold the both of the things.
Yeah. Cause that's where we're going to end up, right?
Yeah.
We've done enough preparation for this to know where we're going to end up.
Yes.
But other than that, this is just going to be a conversation because I feel like, there's nuance here.
Always.
That can only come through just natural conversation. So just, I guess, to set some context, lots of Supreme Court opinions in the United States right now that have determined a lot of very controversial, consequential policies in our country. And so there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, a lot of hurt, a lot of joy, and it just depends on what side of the fence you sit on, how you feel. And so we just briefly talked right before hitting record about where we were going with this. And I think the thing that we want to talk about is, as business owners who have souls, we know that we're going to have opinions, we're going to have beliefs, but what do we do with all of this stuff that's culturally happening, so that we can continue moving forward as a business, but also recognize that the people that we work with, that we meet, that could be clients, that could be people we, spend money working with, or who spend money working with us. How do we still have interaction with them that is life-bringing and soul, I don't know, good for our souls.
Satisfying.
Soul's satisfying. Thank you. I was trying to look for another good word and it wasn't coming. So.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I think the first question is just like how, and the thing is, this could be for anything that happens culturally. It doesn't have to live in the realm of right now.
Yeah, because there's political opinions, but there's also like tragedies.
Sure. Yeah.
Just flat, straight out awful things.
Of which there have been also at the same time as political and cultural opinions being thrown around. Like there have been
like real world,
just straight up tragedy in the middle of all of it. So,
and that's a lot. Just to go back to the soul for a second.
Yeah.
That's just a lot to hold in our soul.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit ways about how we cope with this as a business,
yeah.
Which is similar to how you cope with it as a human. So I don't know. We always say businesses with soul, but the reality is all businesses have a soul. It's just whether you choose to honor it or not.
Yeah.
But how much you choose to honor it is going to determine how you operate in the world and how you treat people and how you choose to exploit or not exploit
Yeah.
people. So being able, because I think here's where my brain is, by the way, I should probably set this up a little clearer. I think that a lot of entrepreneuring business owners will just say, just keep it, just keep it out of, like, it doesn't have to intersect.
Right.
Which I'll talk about a little bit later in compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really easy to just turn this episode off and be like, oh, well, I got to mix business and politics, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
Well, the problem is you do.
Yeah.
It's just how you're doing it, and being aware of how you're doing it is important. Because if you're trying to not be aware of how you're doing it, then you're just doing something on autopilot. You're coping on autopilot, and you might not make choices that you feel good about in hindsight. Yep. And so it's good to get some foresight.
Well, and we were talking before we started recording, about how, we're going to talk about kind of 4 ways, and these were just, again, like in the process of getting ready to hit record, like 4 ways that we kind of see businesses being able to kind of handle maybe cultural crisis or tragedy or anything like that. But, one of the things that we brought up is, just by way of transparency that we normally have here, like, we're both Christian business owners, like that our faith has a lot to do with the values, at least, that we've brought to our businesses. And yet, in this current moment, in our context, in our culture, like, we could very easily alienate a certain portion of our potential business base were we to say something, or maybe even anything at this point, about anything that has happened in the past couple of months and weeks. And so I think some of that too is just, saying, like, instead of looking at who we could alienate or who we could attract based off of our opinions, how can we as businesses consider that not only do we have souls, but the people that we work with every day, the people that we could attract or could alienate, also have souls. And there's a way to approach each and every one of them uniquely for who they are and for what they could bring or what they might not be able to bring, or what we could bring to the table that has a lot to do with what we believe and what we value, but also doesn't have to be a culturally divisive political opinion. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of, a little bit of where we're headed here. Just trying to feel through this as best we can. So
yeah. And then, like, some of our 9-ness part of, at least for me, John, you can say if this is true for you, is if I am saying or doing something that doesn't align, which was something we do a lot as 9s, right? Because we're mergy. Yep. So when I start to say or do something to merge, but I don't feel is right with my value set and who I am, then the inner waters are very upset. Yeah. So what John is saying is not like, oh, merge with every customer that walks in the door. No. Yeah. But we are saying that we're trying to find a way, especially through this conversation, that we're exploring the ways that we are honoring our values and who we are without trying to resolve the tension too quickly. Yeah. Because we're not going to. Yeah. And people want to say that they're going to resolve the tension quickly. Like, we jump onto things and we want to buy things and we want to be supportive of the public voices who have the easiest answers to latch onto. Yeah. And that's just not the real world.
No. I mean, okay, slight tangent.
It's First okay, of all, I started the tangent.
No, it's okay. First of all, I do believe we're having this conversation because we're 9s. Like,
true.
I think we're drawn to it. I think we're drawn to this conversation because we're 9s. I think that our desire is for peace, number one, but also our desire is for both sides to be equally heard and understood. And in that process, like, we have to recognize that there are 2 sides who, and more than that, honestly, like, there's more than 2 sides who have lots of different opinions, and that any one of those people could become a client of ours at any point in time. And so how are we preparing ourselves, and what are our values? I think ultimately too, it goes way back to, like, what, episode 1 or 2, where we talked about values, right? Like, it goes back to your values. But anyways, so that's kind of a tangent, but also,
do you want to hear the most 9-est thing I was thinking whenever you were saying that?
Go ahead.
Okay, there's always 2 sides, but also in every argument, there's always common ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, and that's the most oversimplified thing I'm going to say this entire episode.
Yeah.
Is that in every argument, there's always common ground. And I think that it's important to find it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of where I come from anyway.
Yeah.
But we'll get there, I guess.
Well, and so just to, we'll get there. So just to go like a little bit on just to give an example. So I'm going to give an example I gave Bonni right before we started, which is, and this has nothing to do with a political opinion. This has nothing to do with a SCOTUS decision. It
does have to do with the values.
Does have to do with values. And that is, somebody reached out to me through my Google business, profile, asking for some drone work. Had a little, and I'm going to admit here, like I had a little hesitation from the start.
Gut.
There was the gut jumping in on me. And I thought, you know what, there's something here that feels not quite right, but I'm going to give them my time. I'm going to give them my time of day because they're asking for a service and I can provide that service. And so before I just cut it off, before I even know, this person from Adam, like I'm going to go ahead and just see what happens. And so we exchanged some messages and wrote up a quote. And, the message I got back after giving them a quote was, can you do me a favor? Which is kind of like, okay, well, that's interesting. Yeah. But okay, what's this favor? And they were asking that I add a pretty significant sum of money to the quote in order for that money to be moved to somebody else. And, I basically shut it down right away. I responded, I was like,
red flags are waving.
Yeah. I shut it down right away. I said, look, this isn't how I run my business. It's not in my values. I'm not going to launder money and I'm not going to be scammed. And so I'm sorry, I can't work with you. And, there's a lot of stuff out there like that. And there's a lot of people who will try to take advantage of you and try to have you do things that you don't want to do. And, so here's the thing, like, this person actually might need these services. I don't know. And it's a significant quote that I handed over to them. And I'm saying no, because I'm not going to, and like, I have a journalism background. I know what that is. That's money laundering. Like there's a definition for that. It's illegal. Like you can't like pass money through me. Like I'm going to get caught for that. No. I'm going to get caught for that and arrested and tried for money laundering. Like that lands on me. And so, just like that is what we're talking about on kind of a different
So
scale.
Here's how I connect the dots from John's story to where we're about to go is it's pretty, for most of us, it's pretty easy to look at that situation and be like, red flag, not going to do it.
Yep.
However, what I'd like to emphasize here is that John had a choice as a business owner.
Sure.
And he had this one felt like an easy choice.
Yeah.
But in every decision that we make as a business, we have a choice. And I think in some of the very loud news cycles that happen right now, it feels like we don't have a choice. And then there's other things even like more simple than, cultural context and what's happening. Like it feels like sometimes for me, even there are marketing tactics and things that make me feel like, well, if I want to be a good business owner, a good this is how I need to market. Yeah. But I have a choice in what that looks like. And you have a choice in what that looks like. Like your clientele, your social media following, everybody's going to demand that you do something a particular way. Yeah. But it becomes important for us as business owners and business owners with soul to look at all of it and say, I have a clear choice in this. And to, especially as 9 business owners, I have a clear choice in this. I have autonomy. I don't have to merge. Yeah. So I think we want to call out some ways that some choices you can make. Yeah. Yeah. So like in this context. Yeah. So some ways that, and again, like this is not an exhaustive list. Like this is come up within 5 minutes. And so, I think it's a good list. It is a good list. It's definitely a great starting point. And so, this is definitely, again, just for context, like this is definitely more pointed in the direction of when there's cultural crisis, tragedy, something that's kind of swirling culturally around us. Like these are kind of our options. Or some of the options that we have as business owners to how we are going to handle it or react. So, yeah, the first one that I think we see a lot of people doing right now is become a bandwagon person, a bandwagon jumper runner, which is, essentially like things get loud and this is what the internet feels like right now. Things get very loud and you feel like I have 48 hours to say my piece or I don't matter.
Yeah.
And so it makes it kind of causes you to think too quickly because there's no way as a human being that something traumatic or monumental happens in such a way that you have time to personally cope with it, deal with every single emotion you're feeling, whether you label that emotion positive or negative.
Yeah.
Like you don't have time to deal with all of those emotions and then order your thoughts in a way that honors the complexity even of what's going on in your own brain and your own soul in 48 hours.
Yeah.
Much less than take into account like what your audience is feeling and what the rest of the world is feeling. And if more facts about what's happening is going to come out over time. So there is a huge pressure to bandwagon. I
will say this is kind of like when you're saying it that way, it kind of makes me think of like the anger. And I feel like this is the right kind, like a righteous anger that we feel when like something gets like jammed through Congress or like rammed through a state legislature, which is like, 24 hours before the vote happens, there's a new version of the bill. It's 500 pages long. No one's going to be able to read it.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody just has to vote based off of their gut.
Yeah.
Like this is the same kind of thing where it's like,
this has happened.
You get mad at your lawmakers when they try to pull that crap.
Yeah.
Like don't pull the crap on yourself. Like don't force yourself to react to a situation before you've gathered the facts that you need to gather for you to feel comfortable to speak into it or not. Like again, like the choice, you have a choice. Like you can or you don't have to. You don't have to feel that peer pressure all of the time to speak into everything that is on the table.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like about the word bandwagon is wagon kind of implies that it's moving around all the time. It's really hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting on a soul level. And then it causes you to oversimplify.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, just hands down, it's going to cause you to oversimplify. You're going to get caught up in the emotion. Yeah. We nines particularly, right, are like these gut people. But then we nines particularly then suddenly catch up with our wholeness and then go, ooh, my gut was a little heavy-handed right here. And then we get we get our torrential inner waters, later on. So
yeah, that's good.
This is probably the one I'll say for sure. Bandwagon's I'm going to advertise that one as the worst form of
the worst kind of choice.
It's a good way to burn yourself out really fast. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
so
I can see that.
Yeah, and it makes things as black and white as they can possibly be as fast as possible.
True.
And that's just one of the values that I hold is that things are just not black and white.
Yep. Yeah, so, absolutely. All right, number two.
You can choose to be quiet, but that often leads to quitting.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be silent all the time.
Right.
So I think this feels like a bit of whiplash after talking about bandwagon probably. And so what I'm saying about this is not, that you choose what to, like bandwagon is talking about everything as fast as possible all the time.
Right.
I think you can choose to speak on things that are important to you at the pace that honors your brain and your soul and your values.
Yeah.
But I think there's also just being completely quiet. And you never market, you never have an iota of who you are out in the world. You never talk, period. Like then you kind of disappear.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will say I probably struggle the most here.
Yeah.
And I think that's because us nines have this ability to say my voice doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
And we shrink into the background and we don't believe that the effort of just even saying something is worth it. And so I will say, I think I know where we've talked about where you think you probably land in here most frequently. I think I probably land here most frequently, and I'm still trying to discover a voice that lets me speak in a way that I feel like is genuine and authentic and yet is more consistent than currently it is. So
yeah. And I mean, it's different for like, okay, so my business is a lot of personal growth, and like a lot of what I'm doing is just thinking out loud in front of people, right? Like, and talking out loud. And so I think my business will naturally like lead me towards not being quiet and things more often, but it is kind of a thing of like, okay, you're a video production company.
Right.
Well, you're a creative company. We're not going to box you into just video production. Sorry.
It's okay. Right now I am a video producer.
But for you, you know, it's probably not necessary to get on Instagram and have a clear stance about whatever blah blah is happening. But that doesn't mean that you're making choices in the here and now, you know, or like around the time. Like you still have the ability. Okay, can I be very extreme? I'm going to show some colors. Yeah. Okay, pretend the NRA came to you and needed some kind of like campaign video.
Sure.
And I'm going to assume that you're probably not super happy with the NRA.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That would be correct.
Okay. Sorry, making you show your political colors.
No,
maybe.
it's okay. It's all right.
But you could be quiet and take that money because I'm sure it'd be good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But for you, like, or in this place, like, you might just have to say, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And that's not anything you're going to do on a public platform or out loud, but it's still a choice you have to make.
Yeah, for sure. And so I would say, you know, there's a couple, to take it just a little step further. Like there are definitely some things, right? With, again, going back to values, the way that I structured how I wanted my business to operate on a values level. Like there are opportunities that I could take advantage of today to do something that is going to make me money, that is so far outside of my value set, but I could do it, and I could do it quick, and I could get paid well. Yep. And there are things that I see all the time. There's political stuff. There's political ads, one way or the other, that I'm not going to touch. Like I'm not going to touch those. Adult content. There's posts all the time on Facebook for editors for adult content.
Well, that is eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense because there's an industry for that.
Yeah, lucrative one.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like that is not in my value set. And so I think you're right. Like there are things that we say no to that we're not quiet about all the time. It's just not a public profession of that said value. But
but there,
but it's still an action. It's you're still
it's an active choice.
Yes, thank you.
It's an active choice.
Thank you.
And I appreciate to you about like your story with the weird drone thing.
Oh yeah.
That you directly responded, I will not money launder.
Yeah.
I think it would be very easy in that scenario too to just ghost.
Yeah. To be like,
so good for you for not just ghosting and being like, Google mail block filter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But instead you were like, no, I am not going to do a criminal activity for you.
Right.
Get your life together, sir. Ma'am.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And in this case, it was very much this is very black and white for me. I know what this is, and I'm not going to even pretend like I don't. And I'm sorry. No. Yeah. And it's not even really, I'm sorry. It wasn't, no. There was no sorry there. It was like, just no.
Yeah. Just a heck no. And I think we underestimate how important those kind of interactions though are, because we can, like, in our culture right now sort of over glamorize the social media platform or the out loud, you know, like what you hot take that you have. But what can make a very profound difference are those one-on-one conversations. Yeah. And like when somebody reaches out to you for something, say, I'm not into this, and this is exactly why. And because anytime someone personally rejects something that you're holding personally, like that causes the person to double think.
There has to be reflection.
Yeah. How fast they do that, how capable they are of coping with that.
Yep.
Is up for value, but or up for debate. But those interactions really matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could choose to be quiet and quit, ghost people, not stick to your guns about that. But
But no.
You did not. So on social media, you're quiet. That's okay.
I am. I'm working on it. I've got some pictures to post today. I gotta get my story rolling up for today because I have some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have talked about bandwagon, quiet, which ultimately will probably lead to quit. Number 3.
Compartmentalizing. So,
which as a culture, we are probably super really good at this.
Oh, super really good at this. Yeah.
Which is totally a phrase, by the way.
Super really good.
Super really good.
Let's get stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So compartmentalizing, I think, is probably a trick that a lot of people do across the board.
Yeah.
And there are times where compartmentalization helps you get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
However, any therapist worth their weight will tell you that you cannot compartmentalize forever.
Yeah.
Eventually, you have to open it up. You have to face it. You have to move through. So, however, how this shows up, I think, in entrepreneurship a lot, my best example is like the scheduled social media content that just presses on no matter what, which I've done in some cases and I haven't done in others, of just, you know what, like, we're just going to chuck through this all the time. I'm never going to acknowledge any of this because business has to keep on keeping on. And yeah, you see this in like a lot of marketing tactics too, of just like, it doesn't matter how hard it is. It doesn't matter if the thing you have, like, courses, which is the specialty John is getting into, especially I see crap all the time that's like, it doesn't matter if your course is any good at all, we can sell it to millions of people. And I feel like it's compartmentalizing this, like, well, you need to like have a good product. Right.
I like, yes, it is a niche I'm exploring quite heavily because I think there's a lot of value there, but there is this, and we've talked about this from the very beginning, there's this idea in business and coaching and a lot of things that like you spend 5 hours taking this course and you're going to be a millionaire in a month, you know? And like, that's just not, and it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what the content looks like, sounds like, feels like, what the actual content is. Like, it doesn't matter. You take that course, you're good to go.
Context of the student or
exactly. Yeah. And
so
I think that, you know, this is very easy to do in the business world, is to say, but if you just remove yourself, you know, from this context, or if you just put yourself in a completely culturalist, you know, place,
right,
like, you can do this in a heartbeat. And it's just, that's not reality. That's not the world we live in. So
it feels nice, it sells well. Here's what I'll say really about compartmentalizing is it sells really well because anytime you put things in a sterile bubble, it looks real nice.
Well, it's an idealized version, right? It's like what we would dream of.
And that's what everybody hopes for and what they want. And then you buy it and you try it and you're like, oh man,
crap,
it's not
I actually have to work.
And it's like, well, you took it out of the packaging and started using it, so now it's not in its pristine condition anymore, blah 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 blah.
Right.
You took it out of its compartment.
So I will say, you know,
that's me taking the metaphor too far.
It's totally fine. I think it's great. I will say, like, and I think the thing is, like, this is not to bash courses or online learning at all, because like I've done
you should hire John if you have a good course.
If you want to make one, like, we will make one that is good. Like that, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not I'm not going to be quiet about it. Like, I'm not going to make a terrible course with somebody. I'm just not going to sign up for that. But I've taken some good courses, and the ironic thing I think about some of these courses is, like, the content itself is okay. It's the, like, real world, like, example stuff, like where they've recorded themselves doing something with somebody else. That's like, well, shoot, I mean, that was worth the course right there, because it shows you, again, what it's like to do, like, to put these things in practice in context. To actually have it in context. And so, you know, that's a tangent, but basically just saying, like, there are ways to make things effective in a cultural context, in a real world setting, that are actually helpful and beneficial, I think, to your clients, whoever you're working with.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And compartmentalizing doesn't always, I mean, I think the things that operate in a cultural void, like you were saying, are the things that don't last very long.
Sure.
At least that's my theory. Because they just don't apply. Like we all try them on and then they don't fit right. And it does one of two things. It causes us to feel shame about ourselves. Like, I'm too dumb to know how to use this right.
Yeah.
And so then you lose customers that way. Or it just doesn't work and they say, well, this is a dumb product. You know, so it goes, it goes one of two directions. Yeah. And it just doesn't stick around. It doesn't last. So, you can compartmentalize, you know, that's a thing, but you can't box up your soul for very long.
That's good.
Theological take on that.
You can't box up your soul for very long. You're going to teach a course about that? Sorry. Just ignore me. Okay.
John can help me write that.
Okay. So last one for us for now, because maybe we'll think of more another time. We'll do another episode. But
maybe. The last one for us, and this is obviously like we're showing our true colors here of like where we stand.
Yeah.
But the last one is the one where at least I'm trying to live towards. It's my goal. I don't do it well all the time, but I try, is to embrace the gray and to embrace the complexity. I don't know, probably half of the episodes at this point have me talking about that quote from Henry Nouwen.
Go ahead, say it again.
You know, he talks about the cup of life being full of joy and sorrow.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something as humans, we inherently know that there is paradox in our universe and that there are hard things and that there are good things.
Yeah.
You know, case in point, and easy one to point to is like childbirth is wildly painful, right?
Yeah.
But also it brings you such a beautiful gift, right?
Yeah.
And so even in the very like beginning of our actual lives, we are literally a pain in our mother's butt. And then also we are one of the greatest gifts she's ever received. So just that inherent knowing that there is so much complexity.
Yeah.
We know it, but we also don't like it.
Yeah.
And so that's why we do some of these other things to cope, because we want things to be not gray.
Clean. Clean. Yeah. Because
sorry, I was thinking, which also childbirth is not
clean. So true.
Yikes. Sorry, listeners.
Yeah. Okay. But no, I mean, the way I've heard it referred to recently that I really like is the messy middle. And people, and in this context, when I heard about it, it's another podcast, they were talking about the messy middle, and they were saying like they've received feedback that's like, no, you have to take a side. And people really like bristle and like physically push back or verbally push back against the messy middle. There's this overriding cultural feeling that you have to have a side and you have to take that side and you have to stand firmly there. And I think we both, and again, it's probably somewhat of our personality of nine-ness. It's also probably
I will say this,
rooted in other things, but
growing nine-ness, because average nines, we like clean stuff too.
Sure. Sure. Okay, good. Thanks.
You're welcome.
That was very encouraging. We're growing. That's good to know. But yeah, just the fact that like no, like that again, and I don't think that's how this world was made to work or created, was that there was always sides. You know, I think that there's meant to be a messy middle because that's where the human lies. That's where the soul is somewhere in the messy middle. And so, you know, embracing that gray, it's funny because like I've been meeting with a guy for a long time now. I mean, you know, that I've been meeting with a guy for a long time now, just kind of one-on-one, and we just have conversations and read books together. And one of the cool things that we've seen kind of progress over time is both of us growing more in our embracing of gray, because we're talking about all sorts of stuff. And it's like, these are things that, you know, probably on a cultural level, we're expected to have a position on. And yet we're discovering that those positions are not clean to begin with, and that it's okay for us to see the nuance and see the gray in every position that's out there. And it's just kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could get very philosophical.
Philosophical.
And that's the end of the podcast. Yeah.
It's great talking to you today.
I'm not even going to try to say it again. But on just the idea that we as humanity have really put like judgment on things that are complex. We tend to put as, well, this must not be good if it's too hard for me to understand. If our psyche is drawn towards being able to categorize things because it's how we feel safe in our bodies. Yeah. You know, that is a lion. It is going to kill me. That is bad.
Compartmentalization.
Run. You know, like that's inherently, yes, like how we had survived as humans for a long time. However, that's not necessarily like the reality of complex human issues, right? Like there's not something that's inherently like, oh, that is bad. Let me categorize that. Like there are just some things that's like, oh, that's good and bad. Yeah. Like, oh, that's hard and beautiful. Oh, that's, you know. Yeah. One of the things I was watching recently was like Carlos Whitaker's story. He was talking about feeling messy after some tragedy. After a Scottish ruling, he was talking about feeling messy about it because he was watching people he loved have strong opinions on either side, and he said he was feeling really messy. And then people like went after him and were like, "Well, pick a side. Tell us what you think lowest wit." Right. And he's like, "Look, messy doesn't mean like how did he phrase it? He said messy doesn't always mean middle. Yeah. Or doesn't mean I don't have convictions. Yeah. Like messy just means like I can see it all and I can see what's good in some of it and I can see what's bad in some of it." Yeah. And I think he gave a really nuanced approach to like, here's how I stand on the basics of this. Yeah. But here's the reality. Yeah. For him, it was the Supreme Court ruling on like abortion. Yeah. And he was really clear about his stance of like, I don't think abortion's great. Like, I think it's terrible. Right. I don't think we're handling this well. Right. Like, and so it was messy. Yep. But that doesn't mean he lacks conviction. Yeah. So that's the other thing about gray is I think a lot of times, especially Christians too, right? Like we like to take that verse about like, you are lukewarm and I will spit you out of my mouth think that we have to have clear answers for everything all the time or Jesus is going to physically spit us out of his mouth. Yeah. That's not true. No. That's not even what that means. It's not. Verse. Yeah. So, but that's how we take it. Right. And I think, just to kind of address maybe a little bit of the elephant in the room that this is very theoretical on some levels that we're talking about. Maybe not theoretical, but it is philosophical. It's a little Good job saying philosophical. Thank you. It is a little bit more it's sometimes this feels harder to grasp and to understand like how to move forward. And I believe what we're saying is that as humans, we have to realize we are working with humans on a daily basis, including yourself, right? Like you are a human. The people that will hire you or that you are attempting to get to hire you are human, and that they live in this cultural context that we live in. And it's okay to understand that you're allowed to do discovery. They're allowed to do discovery. You're allowed to have a viewpoint and an opinion. And you're allowed to say yes or no. Or you're allowed to say, I'm not sure yet. Yeah. Or you're allowed to, or I don't know. And then you're allowed to let yourself sit in some of it too. And so I just, cause I think that, I love the messy middle. I love the messy middle. Yeah. Like I really like that. Common ground and everything. Yeah. And I think it gives us a lot of grace and a lot of room to have more constructive conversations with the people that we're going to encounter. So it's good. Yeah. So we said we kind of end with
where we're at?
Yeah, just where we're at personally, or as businesses with some of this.
By the way, are we hearing something?
Yeah, my son is in his room.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure he's wandering around.
So if you hear that, it's summer.
Squeaking the floor.
Kids are home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really something, isn't it?
So where we're at.
Yeah.
Where are you at, Bonni?
Where am I? I mean, I love that you just talked about grace, because I think that's a big part of where I am, is letting myself be okay. I can tend to be either like very compartmentalized or bandwagon fast, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where I want to go because it resolves the inner waters quickly, or at least on the surface.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't really resolve the inner waters. So I'm learning more about how to embrace the gray. And that means learning to be okay with how I'm feeling about the world more. Which doesn't mean that I am like oversimplifying things or like, oh yeah, I figured out exactly the right stance on this and this is how I make it feel better. Or I'm not just totally avoiding the world and things. Like I'm okay with the fact that like, oh, some stuff is probably going to make me cry from the news.
Yeah.
Like, that's something I had turned off in myself for a while. But sometimes the news is going to make me cry. And sometimes the state of humanity is going to make me cry. And sometimes I'm not going to have a quick answer for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But however, that doesn't mean that I'm not growing.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that there is not hope.
Yeah.
And that does not mean that it's bad.
Yeah.
Right? Like all this stuff doesn't mean that it's bad. So I'm in the point of trying to embrace the gray and trying to be okay with the fact that for me, for empathetic enneagram right now, I could do quick marketing tactics. For me, one of the things that I think I keep looking at, I'm like, oh, I could do that. But I keep being like, no, I'm not going to do that, is create a lot of false urgency around some of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could do that. And it would probably make sense marketing wise for me to do that. But right now where I'm at with my soul and with the idea that I'm trying to run with this idea of like compassion and confidence is that like, this isn't a thing that needs to be rushed. So why do I need to create false urgency around it and force you into something that you're not quite ready for yet? So that's one way with me, is just continuing to embrace the pace of gray. Yeah. with grace.
Nice. Yeah.
For myself and for the fact that our world is nuts, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, and we talked about this a little bit before, just like the space you're in. I would say probably on some hand requires a bit more of your outward
talking out loud.
Yeah, facing personality. And so, especially right now, I feel like that it takes a lot of effort and energy. And the ability to, I think you, and hopefully this is encouraging, I think you do it really deftly, if I can use a fancy word, in the sense of like, I think that you find ways to address what's happening in a way that goes deeper than just the issue. And because you will often post something when something happens. And this is I'm using very broad terms because there's just been a lot. Yeah. And so it's not like
I've not addressed all the things.
Yeah. You haven't addressed all the things, but like if there is something that needs to be addressed, you often address it as, and this is, I'll just use kind of a general example, like, this is really hard. You're probably having a lot of different emotions about this because there's all sorts of people out there. And you may be thinking about this any one of a number of ways. Like, take a break. Go rest. Sit in it. Yeah. Do your feeling. Don't feel like you have to like, and some of what you said before, don't feel like you have to say something about it. Don't feel like you have to press into it. Don't feel like you have to do all these things that you're seeing other people do. Right. And I think that you do a really good job at that.
Oh, thanks.
At just allowing people
take a breath
to be empathetic to themselves.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I can go on a hot tangent about that because I do think a lot of what you see in our culture is the fact that people are uncomfortable with their own selves and their own complexity. And when we don't learn how to sit. And so that's like, I have been off of social media right now. My followers are like, she's dead. Because it's been like 5 days, which is different for me. And so, what was I saying? Oh, because I'm just like, no, I need to just, I would be forcing it right now and it wouldn't be good content.
Yeah.
And I just need to sit with what is with myself. And I could put something out there that would be mediocre content and be fine.
Sure.
But also, like, what's that worth? Is that worth is it worth it?
Yeah.
So learning to have empathy for yourself
then
turns that around to other people too. Because if you can only see yourself with judgment, you're going to see the rest of the world with judgment too, for sure.
That's good. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I would say where I'm at right now is probably, I think for me, it is that question of like, I'm not really I don't provide a service in which I need people to know what I think about things. And yet I want people to know that I care. And so finding a balance between, not feeling like I have to share all the time or all my opinions or anything I'm doing or anything like that, but to show like that I care, and how to do that, with a grayness and a delicacy, that provides that kind of a feeling to whoever might read it. And that, like, again, that's a very in some ways I see that kind of as a people pleasing statement, but at the same time, I do really mean it in the sense of like, I would hope that at least the heart of it would be, you understand that I care. And so I think that's just I think we have been in positions in the past where our thoughts and our feelings on things have had to be more front and center and have had to be a part of a conversation more frequently. Yeah. In order to, whether it's just one-on-one or more publicly, it doesn't matter. Because in ministry, people come to you all the time for counseling. I mean, like, just like you become their counselor. Yeah. And I think that there's part of me that feels like that kind of like maybe created in me a feeling like I needed to do that, even though I'm not in a position to really do that anymore. And I think what I'm trying to determine where my gray is right now is determining like, when do I say something that I feel like would show that I care? Because there's just not necessarily the individual opportunity. No, I'm sorry. There's not the public opportunity. There's the individual opportunity that I have. And that I think is an awesome place to explore, because that is, I live more in the individual right now with the people I work with. So, how can I be caring to the people that I'm individually present with, and still on some level, at some time, show publicly that I care?
I'm having an idea.
Do you have an idea?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I just was thinking about like, for people in your shoes and, you know, who like you have the product to show at the end. Like choosing what you show on your website is a way to show like what you really care. Yeah. Because I mean, you could show whatever, but like handpicking the products or the projects that like you really, support and care about says something. So, because not only is it showing your work, then you're showing like you're lifting up work that you believe in too.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it does.
And you're also not doing the NRA ad and not putting it on your website to be shady.
Also, yes. Correct. I will not do that. Yeah. And that, I mean, coming full circle, right? Yeah. That goes back to, what you're talking about right now. It goes all the way back to, what are your values? Who do you say yes and no to? And what are the moments where you are taking the position that you need to take in order to align with your values? Yeah, that's good. Well, I think this is a conversation you could follow if you're not here in the room with us. I hope so. So I hope you found it helpful. It's definitely a little different from, I think, what we would sometimes do. So, but it is I don't know. Maybe we'll have more soul checks. I don't know.
Yeah. The thing with soul checks is there's probably not going to be like a particularly clear answer
Right.
to resolve the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we just basically said you go live in the gray.
Yeah.
Which is like a...
Go sit in the muck.
Yeah, live in the
Do you know
messy.
what's great? Sometimes muck is great. I'm taking that ceramics class and muck is fantastic.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're making some nice stuff out of muck.
Beautiful things. I accidentally trimmed the bottom off of your wife's bud vase. I haven't told her yet. I'm trying to fix it tonight.
I won't tell her.
She'll hear it here.
Yeah.
I'll tell her.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take a picture tonight.
Okay.
I was sad about it last week.
That's pretty funny though.
Anyway, mud,
Yeah.
you can make some beautiful, beautiful things out of mud.
You really can.
If you sit with it long enough.
And take your time.
Yes.
With some love.
Yeah.
And some care. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. And some grace for yourself that you can make a new
Yeah.
base to a bud base.
You can. That's what I've heard.
That rhymed, and I kind of wanted it to.
You base for a bud vase. Now I heard it.
Thank you. Oh man. Okay. Well, so a little heavier. Maybe.
longer.
A little longer. Sorry. But we thought it was important,
Mhm.
especially with just everything that's swirling. So
Yeah. And we hope you find us on the internet.
yeah, we live there. Some places.
We live there. I just had this moment where I felt like a video game character trapped in the internet.
Oh, that's funny.
You should subscribe and leave us a review. Right?
To join the
Come
party.
back to the real world.
Join
Yeah.
the party.
Join
Yeah.
the party.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are moving towards our next interview.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be great. And yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.